It is officially draft week. This is the final mock draft Monday. So, what better time than version 3.0? First 73 picks of the 2025 NFL drafts, going to 73 to get that third Jets selection off the board. But of course, we'll be wearing the GM cap for all 32 teams in this one. And if you like the long mock draft videos, a thumbs up is an easy way to show it. If you hate the pick I take for your team, you can hit the thumbs down button because it is a free country, and that's why the Tennessee Titans will have their pick of anybody, pick number 1. Cam Ward, draft really starts at 2, but I think in some order, Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter are going to go 2 and 3, and we will send Hunter to Cleveland and Carter to the Giants, right? I think those are going to be the first 3 picks in some order, with Cam Ward definitely going number 1. Travis Hunter goes to Cleveland. I think in pretty short order, he could be their wide receiver 1 over Jerry Jeudy, and the Giants just go with the best player available. You could argue that Abdul Carter has the most impactful non-quarterback skill set at the top of this draft as an edge with a 12, 15 sack ceiling. And does that mean you trade Kayvon Thibodeau? Okay. And now you pair Carter with Brian Burns and Dexter Lawrence on that defensive front. You could do a lot worse for the New York Giants. And the Patriots at pick number 4, unless there's a really good reason not to, this should be a pick that helps your young quarterback after, Mike Vrabel spent a ton of money upgrading that defense, which needed some work, but you don't have a left tackle. You don't have a wide receiver 1. So to me, this comes down to McMillan or an offensive lineman. And I'm going to have Will Campbell go to the New England Patriots. I think they are in a position where they can try him at left tackle, and worst case scenario, he fails and ends up being a really damn good guard, which is not ideal. But in this draft class, in the spot they're in, I think that is the bet and the trade-off you try to make to get Drake May some much-needed protection. There is like blank names on the depth chart of left tackle for New England. Don't think they want to be in the business of waiting around until, pick 35 ish at the top of the second round. Jacksonville Jaguars. I do think the conversation for Tyler Warren starts here. I think that is a very interesting pick, but I'm going to go a little bit more chalk at the top here in this one with Mason Graham. I think it is a great blend of positional value, need, and talent. Eric Armstead has really just been reduced to a rotational player. They don't have much to speak of on their defensive interior. Their GM said that's what the draft is for. You plug in Mason Graham, you do have Josh Hines-Allen and Trevon Walker off the edge. Helps the Jaguars defense that was anemic last season. Raiders. They could go Membu. I like Will Johnson here as a Will Johnson stan because the back 7 of that defense is atrocious. But I think they're going to take the last remaining blue chip player and take Ashton Genty. And that's a fun pick, man. You pair Ashton Genty with Brock Bowers, Geno Smith. You have Pete Carroll there. And I do think that maybe that means you're in a little bit more of a short-term mode where you just take that player at running back who's going to be in his prime the moment he's drafted. And he warrants being a top 10 pick as a running back. He is that good of a prospect. And when you compound that with him being in a weak draft class, if guys like Gibbs and Bijan Robinson are top 12 picks, it is no crazy scenario for Ashton Genty to be the number 6 overall pick. New York Jets took Tyler Warren here last time. Buddy Dom C took Will Campbell. I think both of those could be a possibility. I'm going to go with my guy Armand Membu. I do think it's going to be between Tyler Warren or whichever one of Will Campbell and Armand Membu are available for the New York Jets. Now, they could throw a curveball at us, right? If they could go with a defensive player, I think a defensive player not named Mason Graham would surprise me here for the Jets. But Membu slides right in at right tackle. It is a glaring need. Maybe not their biggest need, but it is a significant need. And I think the talent and the positional value really adds up here. I don't see this massive discrepancy between left tackle and right tackle anymore. You're in the gun a bunch. Teams are moving their best pass rushers around to where if you're weak at one spot, they're going to find it. There were 4 players who were picked in the top 20 last year, 2 in the top 10 who are playing right tackle for their team. Aaron Glenn was the coach of a coach with the Detroit Lions and saw how their identity was molded around starting that rebuild by taking a right tackle. I know that Membu is not as good of a prospect as Penei Sewell, but we're also not in a draft class with Jamar Chase and Micah Parsons and Kyle Pitts, at least the prospect version of Kyle Pitts. So Membu be the pick here for me if the board unfolded like this. Although Tyler Warren definitely would be in consideration. If the Jets take Tyler Warren, my video reaction to that pick will definitely be a very positive one. As long as they don't do something super crazy, like Shamar Stewart. Shout out to Dylan Terman. No Shamar Stewart. Other than that, man, we're going to be good with whatever the Jets do. But the Carolina Panthers, that defense was historically bad, so they need help at every single phase. And let's just take the most versatile defensive player in the draft in Jalen Walker, who, man, Trevor Sikkema's got to update his big board because per consensus, it definitely seems like he is kind of itching in on that territory of one of the blue chip players. Bucky Brooks just listed 5 blue chip players he thinks are in the draft. Tyler Warren was in there, Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, and Jalen Walker, and one other one, Ashton Genty, according to him. And he's number 5 on Daniel Jeremiah's big board as well. A little bit of a tweener, but hey, man, I just think you put him on the line of scrimmage and let him cook. He's got enough play strength. Go get the quarterback, young fella. The Saints, I think this is a good spot for Shedeur Sanders, who highly productive, completion percentage a little bit inflated by throwing like 115 screen passes last year. But the Saints, man, I guess it's this, or they just like kind of do a little quasi tank here with Derek Carr being injured and try and get a quarterback at the top of next year's class. But he is the quarterback too, most likely. And I do think he's going to be a first round pick. So if not here or to the Steelers, I think this is where the conversation starts. Once the Giants and Browns pass on him like they did in this situation, I do think that he's probably better suited to play a bunch of games in a dome and not have to have the velocity to fire balls through 30-mile-an-hour crosswinds a ton. And the Saints are as QB needed team as anybody. I mean, Derek Carr, that contract, they're just waiting to get rid of him, and he might not be ready to even start the season. Chicago Bears, I think you'd love Genty here if he was there. He's not. Tyler Warren is a really fun fit for Ben Johnson's offense. Ben Johnson could definitely cook with Tyler Warren, no doubt about it. But, I mean, you have Roma Dunze and DJ Moore. So how many? I mean, those guys could easily get 250 targets between them, plus Cole Kmet, who's serviceable. Like, just how many targets is a pass catcher going to get here? Can you justify taking a pass catcher who won't be one of your top 2 targeted players in the top 10 of the NFL draft? Maybe it's all circumstantial, but I'm going to go a little bit of a different direction here. I like Walter Nolan to the Chicago Bears. They added a lot to that defensive line. Got Sweat, really good pickup. But now you had a really dynamic, penetrating 3-tech who is crazy athletic. I think you could argue has a higher pass rush upside than Mason Graham. To that defensive front, you have your offensive line, at least your starters squared away. The top 2 offensive linemen were gone anyway. Walter Nolan, get ready to learn deep dish pizza, buddy. Could have been a good pick for the 49ers there as well. I do think they're going to go trenches. And we'll slap Kelvin Banks to the 49ers. He's going to start somewhere on that offensive line right away. Maybe sends Colton Minkovitz to the bench. Trent Williams is like 36, 37 years old. So could he eventually flip over to the blind side and be your long-term solution there? 3-year starter at Texas at 21 years old, 3-year starter at left tackle. That's a pretty impressive resume. Cowboys perfectly lined up for Tetairoa McMillan. Jerry Jones just says, we draft for need, baby. You need a wide receiver. Your wide receiver room outside of CeeDee Lamb is hot buns. Tetairoa McMillan, wide receiver 2, if you consider Hunter a wide receiver, in my opinion, and gives Dak Prescott a much needed weapon. I mean, their skill group outside of Lamb is really, really hurting right now. So the Dolphins, Banks could have been an option here, but they have Jalen Ramsey on the trade block, and their other starting corner is named Storm Duck. So to me, if they move Jalen Ramsey, their corner situation is unequivocally a more dire emergency than their offensive line, even though it's not very great. They do have two tackles who can start, or at least you think Patrick Paul would. They took him top 50 last year. So to me, this is Will Johnson. The worst draft PR ever for a really damn good prospect. I get it, imperfect. You'd like to see some testing numbers to, squash the concerns about long speed, dealt with the injury last year, but man, I think he's one of many players like Luther Burden where you look back at the previous year and it's like that is the player I think you're going to get in Will Johnson, and he goes to the Miami Dolphins. If Jalen Ramsey is traded, he is immediately their corner one on the boundary. The Colts, perfect. Tyler Warren, they're crossing their fingers here. I think if he's gone, they might take Colston Loveland. But Warren is, again, like a couple of these picks. I think Mason Graham to the Jaguars, you could argue. I think Will Johnson at 13, where team need and talent just perfectly aligns. The Colts didn't have a tight end who caught more than like 15 passes last year. Tyler Warren would look good in the Colts uniform, similar to the Penn State colors, right? But Warren is he is, again, he's not Bowers, but he is a notch above the standard tight end one in every draft class, right? That typically goes at pick 24, 25. He is a notch above that. And I think the conversation for him starting as soon as 5 to the Jaguars, 7 to the Jets, 10 to the Bears, with the floor really being 14 to the Colts. Awesome, phenomenal player. So Raheem Morris, you're on the clock, and my goodness, do you need a pass rusher? And thankfully, Mike Green is here. That's a pretty sweet fit. Outside linebacker for Raheem Morris's defense. Falcons were like bottom 5 in sacks. Couldn't get out the field on third down. And Mike Green, crazy production. Hits those a couple of threshold testing numbers you like from an edge player like the 3-cone. And outside of Abdul Carter is probably the best pass rusher off the edge in the class, I'd say. So the Cardinals, seems like they could take an offensive lineman every year. This could be a spot for Barron. And they did add Tomlinson. And didn't they also add the other Sweat through defensive line? They added an edge player. But I still see a spot here for either another edge or another interior player. And yeah, they did add Sweat and Dalvin Tomlinson, and Calais Campbell is back. So they really added a lot to that defensive line, but a lot of their top 30 visits have been first round defensive line prospects. They could go wide receiver here, but similar to the Bears, I mean, Marvin Harrison Jr. and Trey McBride are going to get so many targets. James Conner is going to get, 50 targets. Kyler Murray is going to run the ball quite a bit. They run the ball a lot in general. So would a pass catcher here warrant the role in the offense that of a top, 20 pick? I don't know. So I think this is going to be a defensive lineman, and we'll put Kenneth Grant there. Next to, he is a little bit best of both worlds. He's built like a 1 tech, but I think he's got the skill set of a 3 tech. I compare him to a lesser version of Dexter Lawrence. I think is kind of what you're getting with Kenneth Grant. So he is so versatile. He could go to Pittsburgh and he could be an odd front defensive end. He could be a true odd front nose tackle if you want him to be. He could be a 3 tech or a 1 in a 4-3 defense. Anywhere on a defensive interior, Kenneth Grant. I know you see that size profile and you think, oh, this is just a 2-gapping run stuffer. Why are you taking this top 20? But that's not really his game. And I only know this from watching Mason Graham. And I was like, holy shit, who's that guy? He's got some really impressive wins and an explosion and get off for a guy that big. Kenneth Grant is a dude. Get ready to learn Arizona Cardinals, buddy. Okay, Cincinnati Bengals. Why did you not sign a guard? Why did you do this to yourself? Because I don't know if I could reach for, so to me, it's guard or pass rusher. But like the tackles you could even play at guard, a lot of them are gone. Like Kelvin Banks would definitely be a spot here. It might be early for Gray Zabel, although I might just take him at 18 to the Seattle Seahawks. But I think this is a nice spot where this is where the Michael Williams, Shamar Stewart conversation. Wow, 38 on the big board for Michael. Well, the people are drafting him at 24 overall. So it's like rotten tomatoes, man. The audience score always knows better than the experts. But Michael Williams at 17, you pair him across from Trey Hendrickson, and such a high floor because you know the run defense is going to be elite. Now I get it. That's not the first thing you want to hear when you're taking an edge player in the top 20, but it's just part of his game that you know. And I'm not just talking like, oh, he's a good edge setter. Like, no, he's going to be an elite run defender. And he had a ton of alignment versatility. He was playing 4-eye. He was playing in the B gap. He was playing outside on the edge. 6'5", 260 plus pounds, and one of the youngest players in the draft, hasn't turned 21 yet. So he's going to come into the league and just be strong as shit, like Jared Verse was, right? Where he's just going to get he's going to get 5-6 sacks off just bull rushes and athleticism as he learns to round out that pass rush tool bag. Similar, I think, a little bit to Jermaine Johnson in that way as a prospect. And he goes to Cincy at 17. 18. See, the issue with Seattle is they need an interior offensive lineman at like every freaking spot. So the Bengals could just wait and take a guard on round 2. But if you are the Seahawks and you don't start your offensive line investments here, you're just going to run. I don't know. Again, I don't know how they put themselves in this position. It's crazy. Especially with Geno Smith taking that beating last year. But it's not that insane of a reach to take Gray Zabel, which is what we will do. Pick a spot for him, center, guard, hopefully one of the guard spots, probably one of the guard spots, and you get yourself a day one starting offensive lineman at pick 18. Buccaneers, Jahad Campbell, baby. That lines up nicely. You play him next to Levante David for 1 year, and then you have him be your Levante David for the next 10 years after that. Broncos defense is really good. They made some more investments on that defense. Let's help Bo Nix. So Omarion Hampton is there, but I feel like we have only taken, a couple receivers? So Loveland is there too. I'll take Luther Burden to the Colts, who was unbelievable in 2023. You see the 1,200 yards, 9 touchdowns. Very unique player, kind of built almost like a third down running back kind of build, and that's how he looks when he gets the ball in his hands, but plays pretty strong at the catch point for a smaller player. A 55% contested catch rate. You like that. 6.1 yak per catch. You like this, man. I think he comes in, and now you have Cortland Sutton. You got Luther Burden. You got Evan Ingram. You take a running back in the second round, and now you've given Bo Nix a pretty serviceable skill position group. Pittsburgh Steelers. What are we going to do here? I really think that there's going to be a lot of defensive interior players who come off the board in round 1. That's where I want to look here. I would have loved Kenneth Grant here. Is there a defensive interior player still worth taking? And I know they're not going to have him rated that high. I don't care. How far is he? Oh my goodness. 42. I think Derek Harmon is worthy of being a close to top 20 pick. And the Jets visited with him, and I think the Jets visited with him maybe in a trade back scenario into round 1. Truly, he is an absolute beast. And now he comes in, and you can play him perfectly opposite of Cam Hayward, right on the other side of Keanu Benton, and you're out front as a 3-4 defensive end. You're not talking a top 7 pick, so you're not worried about are you going to play him as a 3 tech to get the most out of a defensive interior player at pick 21 in a draft class like this. Derek Harmon to me is a fine investment for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Chargers at 22. Colston Loveland fits in beautifully. Another one of those picks. Need and talent and positional value. You're now out of the top 5, 10, where taking a tight end isn't as taboo. And man, what a beautiful fit for Justin Herbert, who desperately needs another pass catcher who strike some fear into the hearts of defensive coordinators who isn't named Ladd McConkey. So you could have made an argument for Matthew Golden. I just think Loveland is a better player, and we'll send him to LA. But speaking of Golden, will Brian Gutekunst do it? He's probably going to take an edge or a corner. But let's break the streak. First round wide receiver to the Green Bay Packers, Matthew Golden. Let's help out Jordan Love. I know Packers fans, all their receivers are like wide receiver ones, but every year none of them have 1,000 yards. Christian Watson, his injuries at this point, it makes him hard to rely on. And their defense was really good last year, and their offense was kind of mediocre. And now you give Jordan Love a nice, smooth, speedy boundary wide receiver and Matthew Golden. Vikings, so these two defensive backs here, at what point is one of them too good to leave hanging? And I'm going to take Malachi Starks here. Let's put Malachi Starks in Brian Flores' defense and just see what happens. That is the logic here. That is the detailed analysis you come to the channel for. But maybe it doesn't need to be more complicated than that, man. You know, Harrison Smith is going to be probably retiring after one more year. You can run 3 safety looks to get him onto the field. He could probably play some nickel for you. Looking at their R-lads, there's not an emergency spot. Doesn't seem like for him to play where it's like, oh my gosh, we have to take Malachi Starks because we have no rosterable defensive backs. Not a situation like that, but the Vikings are a team that has the benefit of taking BPA, even if it isn't their most pressing need. Defensive interior, I just think the talent has been picked over where now you can take the first safety off the board and feel pretty good about it. Texans, I'm going to keep sending Josh Simmons to the Texans until I can think of a reason not to. I know they band-aided up left tackle for 1 year with, I believe it is Cam Robinson they picked up for a year. Okay. But if you take Justin Simmons here and if his medicals clear out, he could look, man, if Josh Simmons didn't have any injuries, he could go to number 4 to the Patriots. Like, he is a phenomenal left tackle prospect. So now you say, okay, can he play right tackle year 1? And then for the next 10 years, he's going to protect CJ Stroud's blind side, who was getting killed last year by that offensive line. Worthwhile investment here. Jahdae Barron. Hey, Rams, you like zone defense? Cool. Now you have a Swiss Army knife on your back end. Jahdae Barron, play him at safety, play him at nickel, try him at boundary, whatever you want to do there. He's just the best player on the board, and the Rams have enough spots available in their secondary that could use an upgrade. He will settle in somewhere for sure. Ravens. Donovan Jackson, guard. You lose Kevin Zeitler, John Simpson the year before. Plug in Donovan Jackson, day 1 starter at guard. Tackle convert, which is what a lot of the guards that are drafted in this draft are going to be guys who started at offensive tackle and are switching. So the Lions at 28, and this seems like I'm looking at Shamar Stewart, but I think this could be a spot where his teammate goes, Nick Scorton, who I don't know if he's not a better prospect than Shamar. I know they were not necessarily asked to do the same things. Texas A&M scheme wasn't always the most conducive to their pass rushers production, but Nick Scorton does check that size. He weighed a little bit less than this at the combine, but he does check that size profile that Campbell has liked in his defensive ends, and enough production, enough talent, and it is a significant need after you lose Zadarius Smith after that 1-year rental. Hutchinson coming back from the injury. Scorton, immediate starter at edge for the Lions. Commanders. Amarian Hampton, running back. You traded for a left tackle. You went and you got Deebo Samuel to pair with Terry McLaurin, and now you get running back 2 off the board, where you're almost in the early second round here. Perfectly fine value for the Commanders to get another weapon to support Jaden Daniels. Going on the run here. Bills, I think they really need defensive interior, but I I think Donovan Azaraku is just probably too good to pass here. I can't imagine he makes it to the second round. They did lose Von Miller, which I know he was kind of washed, but he chipped in a fair amount of pressures and sacks for them the previous couple of years. And they, outside of Russell, they don't have anybody off the edge that is really, notable. Uh, and their defense has betrayed them. Every playoff loss, it's because their defense just has been ass in the playoffs. So let's make an investment there. Scoring points has not been their issue in terms of getting eliminated the past 2-3 seasons. So keep fixing the defense until it stops getting you bounced out of the playoffs would be my strategy there. So the Chiefs, I know everyone says tackle here, but they have Juwan Taylor, and did they pay? They just signed an expensive tackle. A significant investment. Jalen Moore. They just paid him. How much did they pay him? Two-year deal. Okay, but is it funny money? I got to know. If it's a 1-year deal disguised as a 2-year deal, maybe we can go tackle here. 2-year, $30 million contract, including $21 million guaranteed. So yeah, man, he's going to be their left tackle for 2 years. It looks like, or he's going to be an expensive dead money the second year. Like this is probably a 2-year band-aid at left tackle. So are they going to take a left tackle who's not going to play for 2 years, or have this guy that just pay on the bench? You know what I mean? I don't know, because I'd like Josh Connerly here, but since he's not, I'm going to go Shamar Stewart. And they're going to bet on his traits and upside and pair him opposite of George Karlaftis on that defensive line. He could probably kick inside a little bit next to Chris Jones on obvious passing situations. And this is the spot in the draft where you can take a risk on traits over production. The Eagles, do they take Egbuka and have that? Why is wide receiver their number one need? They have A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith. I don't understand. Am I missing something about the Eagles? Ooh, you know what I like here? Milton Williams leaves, and in comes Omar Norton-Lott, who is one of the nastiest pass rushing profiles of any defensive interior player I've ever seen. I haven't watched his film, but the analytics say this guy is like Aaron Donald. Now, obviously not, but sick of him bumping him up to 27 on the big board. And I think like Milton Williams is going to be limited against the run, but give you some much needed juice on that pass rushing front, who did lose, 2 starters and a key rotational player with Williams, Sweat, and Graham departing / retiring. All right, now the Your Picks tab is here. Thank goodness. Travis Hunter goes to the Browns in the first round. Now, how about they take a quarterback here? I'm going to take Josh Connerly. Take Josh Connerly. You have a gaping hole at right tackle. The Giants. I think this is Jalen Milroe. You're now in that top of the second round territory, the Geno Smith, Jalen Hurts territory, where you could sit him for an entire year if you want to. And now you have your developmental quarterback, where the Giants, you're probably thinking maybe they don't even have that big. There could be a lot of teams that don't see Shedeur Sanders and Jalen Milroe as vastly different grades. Whereas, holy crap, the drop off from Abdul Carter to the positional players you could take here is probably pretty substantial. So Giants still take a shot at quarterback here, but they get their blue chipper first. Titans, you took Cam Ward. You need a receiver in the worst way. Emeka Egbuka. Boom. How quick until he's wide receiver one over what's left of, Calvin Ridley. Jags, my Mason Graham. Mm, could go pass catcher. They did bring in De'Ami Brown. They still have Gabe Davis and Brian Thomas Jr. Serviceable enough. That defense was terrible. I really like Xavier Watts to the Jags to replace Andre Cisco, who comes to the Jets. Raiders, you get Ashton Genty in round one. James Pierce Jr., what are you still doing hanging around here at 37? That seems unlikely. But that's how players fall, man. It seems like, how'd this guy fall? And you look at one pick at a time. It just made sense each time for that team to pick that player. You know what I mean? That's how guys fall. Patriots, we still got to help out our quarterback here. You took Will Campbell. We need a pass catcher here, man. What's up at wide receiver? What's up at tight end? Jaden Higgins to the Pats. X receiver. Have some small guys, some gadgety guys. They need a legitimate target who is worthy of throwing 100 passes to. And Jaden Higgins checks that. Great size, athletic, and production profile for the Iowa State product. The Bears went a little rogue here and took Walter Nolan. What's up at running back? Come on, PFF. I believe I only took one other back off the board. There we go. I don't know if I love that here yet. I think you could still wait and get a good back in the third round. I like Kevin Winston Jr. to the Chicago Bears. They have Kevin Byard, 1-year Band-Aid deal. But man, he's phenomenal. A true thumper who just does not miss tackles. He just doesn't miss tackles. He's a linebacker mentality with safety size and athleticism. Kind of an old school player. One of my favorite players in the draft. Kevin Winston Jr. I did love that other Penn State safety who the Bears drafted in the second round a couple years ago. I don't know if it worked out for him. Jaquan Brisker, was he any good? I thought he was going to be amazing. Maybe not. So maybe second time's a charm here. The Saints took Shedeur Sanders. We got to help him out here. I'll go. To be honest, Iomanor is a player I just have not dug into behind the sheet that is on your screen. So besides what I can see from his stats and, the PFF big board ranking, I don't know, but I have dug into Jack Besh quite a bit, and I like him here. Shedeur Sanders, if he's taken there, is probably going to start week one with Derek Carr's health up in the air. And Chris Olave, it could be one concussion away from career contemplation. So they need everything. And when in doubt, let's make an investment that helps our young quarterback. And it's not like number 40 is some crazy reach for Besh, in my opinion. 41. So this is the Bears again, who got two defensive starters. All right. Do we just take the running back here? Why not? Sampson's favorite player growing up was Reggie Bush, and his speedy style illuminates the memorable parts of Bush's game. Okay, sold. Dylan Sampson, you're a Chicago Bear. Get Caleb Williams a weapon as one of these top picks, but you also got two defensive starters for Chicago. Jets on the board at 42. They took Armand Membu in round one. I want a pass catcher here. A couple of them went off the board that I liked. See? See, me personally, I know they're ranked lower. I wouldn't have an issue with taking Kyle Williams or Trey Harris or even Mason Taylor at pick 42. I love Tyleek. Two trench investments at the top. I think you have to look at What is there? And Aaron Glenn has said, win, lose, or draw, you're going to felt it when you played the damn Jets, right? And I think Membu and Williams definitely would be two picks that would emulate that for sure. I just want a weapon, man. And Alik Iomanar, are you good? Are you good? I don't know, man. I might draft you to my football team. Am I making a mistake here? Drop rate seems a little high. Seems like he had a better 2023. Oh, it doesn't make me feel warm and fuzzy inside to take Illuminor, though. Don't love my options. What's left at offensive tackle just to see? Okay, so it's not, again, not a top 65 rated player at tackle either. So it's not like Connerly is there and we have Membu remorse, right? I don't like Arroyo here. I'm going to take a pass catcher, which is what I want to do. I think I would take Kyle Williams. I think he's going to go in the, probably not 42, but I think he's going to go in the top 55 picks. And I think he just brings an element of speed and explosiveness and playmaking to this offense that some of the other possession receivers just don't bring. And unbelievable yak ability and deep ball ability. He was top 20 in the nation in both like yak per catch and then also deep catches number 10. So it's not like Malachi Corley where you're just the yak king. Like, no, you're getting deep, the ability to track the ball while it's in the air. Now he is pretty small. So durability, you'd always have to worry when you have a 185 pound football player getting tackled by people who weigh 50, 60 pounds more than him. Sure, he'll probably have to play in the slot a lot, although he did play as a boundary receiver majority of the time. He was number 80 and now he's up to 65. I just think he's going to be a mid second round pick, and taking him in the early second round after going Membu. And the offensive linemen left are also here in the 60s. So if we went Warren, we'd be talking about, an offensive tackle rated in the 60s by PFF. So I'm going to take Kyle Williams to the New York Jets. Okay, the Niners, what do we do in round one? Didn't we take Kelvin Banks? Okay, cool. What else do you need? And Trey Amos. Still on the board? Come on. Do they need a corner? Corner listed as one of their needs. Trey Amos is way too damn good. I think he could go to the Bills in the first round. So we'll send him to San Francisco. The Cowboys took Tedorola McMillan. Running back could be a good spot here as well. We'll take Cam Scatabo to the Dallas Cowboys. Listed as their number one need. Top 50 player. 44th pick. Cool. Colts took Tyler Warren. I need a safety, I think, and he might be a first-round pick. I know PFF has him way down here, but it's too far. 67, again, I pushed back on that with Eamon Wari. Unbelievable athlete, arguably the best athletic performance at the entire combine, but was, a top 60 pick prior to that. Shoot him up to 45 to the Colts, who, Julian Blackmon departs, so there is a starting safety hole open. The Jets should sign Julian Blackmon, by the way. Cardinals, not yet. Falcons first. They took Mike Green. I think the back seven of that defense could still use some work. How about where's Demetrius Knight? Is it Demetrius Knight territory yet? It's about to be, baby. Demetrius Knight, get ready to learn Raheem Morris's defense. Cardinals took Kenneth Grant in round one. I think here is maybe where you take the pass catcher. We'll take a Humidor. Again, my argument for the pass catcher was, can you take a third passing weapon behind Marvin Harrison Jr. and Trey McBride in the first round? Probably not, but I think you could take it at pick 47 in Iominor. 34 on the PFF big board. Okay. So the Dolphins passed that offensive line in round one, but they went with Will Johnson. What's left on the offensive line market? We'll take Tyler Booker. And we will send Liam Eichenberg to the bench in Miami. Bengals also went defense over offensive line, and they probably would have liked to take Tyler Booker, but he is gone. And now it's, again, rankings be damned, dude. Tate Ratledge is an absolute dog, a bulldog to be specific, and 3-year starter at left guard in the SEC. Okay, plug him in at guard, day one starter. Let's not overthink this. Seattle, you got an offensive lineman in round 1. We could double dip there, but they also need edge. Landon Jackson fits in nicely because they are very front versatile with McDonald's defense. So I do think he could kick inside a little bit. Big dude, 6 foot. What is he? 6'6", 6'7", listed at 280. Also betting on some traits more than production with Jackson, but we can do that at pick 50. 51, Broncos went Luther Burden in round 1. Let's go get Travion Henderson. Couple of investments to help out Bo Nix. And their top 2 needs are met. And the talent was worth it. So pretty good haul for the Broncos there. Seahawks back on the clock. They got starting defensive lineman. Do they go back to the offensive line here? They also could use a wide receiver. Right? Because you lose DK Metcalf. There's a lot of slot receiver types, though. And they do have JSN. Would we... Give me Tyleek Williams in the middle of that defensive line. Yeah, Leonard Williams. You had Tyleek, who can, again, be either a 1 or a 0, depending on what front you want to run. You got Leonard Williams next to him. You got Landon Jackson moving across your front. Let's invest in the trenches in Seattle. Bucks back on the clock after getting Jahad Campbell. So linebacker is scratched off the list of needs, but edge, I like Princely here. Have him rotate with Hassan Reddick year 1 and then take over as that type of DPR in year 2. Princely is the Will McDonald of this draft class, so maybe he could go super high, surprisingly. Packers went Matthew Golden round 1. So they got a couple of good corner options here. This lines up beautifully. We'll just go with the top guy listed. Morrison, smart, smooth, moving man coverage cornerback with good instincts for making plays on the ball. All right, you, sir. You meet the size thresholds they like there in Green Bay. Jair Alexander, we don't know what's going on with him. They get a corner. Chargers at 55, they got Colston Loveland round 1. They still could use defensive linemen. Poona Ford leaves. Joey Bosa leaves. I like Braden Swinson. Very strong off the edge. Maybe not Bosa strong, but they need a starting edge player in San Diego or in LA. Bills got Donovan Ezeraku in round 1. Boom, Siobhan Revel. Nice comeback story. ECU go Pirates. And they need to replace Rasul Douglas. Probably starts immediately across from, who's that corner that just extended? Good one. Name's escaping me. It'll come back to me in like 10 picks later. Carolina, Jalen Walker round 1 to help that defense. Is there a pick that we can make to help out our quarterback? I think so. I think it's Jalen Royals, wide receiver, Utah State. I mean, they took Xavier Leggett. They have Adam Thielen around out there, but they don't really have a wide receiver 1. So can you have 2 wide receiver 2s between him and Leggett? Help out Bryce Young, who looked all right after getting benched last year. Texans took Josh Simmons, if I remember. Yes, they did. They could be in the wide receiver business as well. I like Trey Harris here after Stephon Diggs leaves to New England and, Tank Dell, some durability concerns. So Texans were like 4 deep at receiver heading into last year, and all of a sudden it's snuck up on them and become a pretty good need. So the Texans cross off offensive line and wide receiver with their first 2 picks. The Ravens took Donovan Jackson to step in for Kevin Zeitler in the first round. And how about we plug in JT, Tui Malao, who they love big ass edge players in Baltimore. Like Jadeveon Clowney, like Kyle Van Noy bulking up and moving down to the defensive line, but how much longer can he do that for you? Again, top 2 needs, talent matches, boom, boom. Detroit Lions, Nick Squirt in round 1. Their defense needs a lot of help. A wide receiver could be in play here. Do they need a corner? Well, they just signed DJ Reed. And they have Terrion Arnold, so they don't need a boundary corner in Detroit. But they could use a linebacker. Carson Schweisinger. Very good in coverage. Maybe not the thumper you want, but probably day 1 starter for, I don't know who their new defensive coordinator is now that Aaron Glenn left, for Dan Campbell's defense. Hampton around 1 for the Commanders. Let's pair him with Maxwell Hairston. Secondary was not very good in Washington last year. Bills got a couple of defensive starters in Ezeraku and Revel. I mean, let's just keep it going, man. Darius Alexander on the interior next to Ed Oliver. Defense for the Buffalo Bills. Again, every time I root for the Bills to lose in the playoffs. Of course, part of it as a Jet fan living here, but ain't because Josh Allen's offense isn't scoring enough points. Okay, so the Chiefs went with Shamar Stewart in round 1. Is this where they come back around to offensive line? I think you can take Ariante Ursary here. I think you could play him at guard. I think you could find there's going to be a scenario where he plays a good amount of games for you as a rookie. All right, I'll leave it at that. You're almost at the top of the 3rd round here. So you can make a pipeline investment in the offensive line when guard and tackle are your 2 biggest needs. And he's sitting there as a top 70 player at pick 63. Eagles, who took Omar Norman Lott to replace Milton Williams in round 1. They could also use an interior offensive lineman to replace Mekhi Becton. Ozzie Trapillo is not doing that. Marcus Mabau could, but that might be a little early for him. I'll go Jared Ivey. Howie Roseman's got no problem over investing in the trenches, defensive line, and very versatile. So you lose Sweat, you lose Graham, and now you have a big, versatile edge player who, again, could kick inside and be some WD-40 across your defensive front in Philadelphia. That defensive line was the reason primarily they beat the crap out of the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. They lost 3 significant players, so they add 2 more. With their first 2 picks, Giants back on the clock here. They took Carter. They took Milroe. TJ Sanders. Boom. Next to Dexter Lawrence as a 3-tech. Perfect. Chiefs back on the clock. How about Elijah Arroyo, tight end, Miami? Travis Kelce is going to be playing forever, and they do run as much multiple tight end sets as any team in the league. Pass catching unit ain't so hot. Elijah Arroyo helps out immediately. The Browns took Travis Hunter and then Josh Connerly. Here's where they get their quarterback, Jackson Dart, pick 67. Don't know if he's going to last to that point. I'm not doing trades or anything in this draft class, but I do think he goes in the first 2 rounds, and Cleveland already made 2 picks, and now they can go ahead and take their shot at a quarterback here. Raiders took Ashton Genty and then James Pierce. So running back's good. They could use a boundary receiver if there's one worth it. Is Ozzie Trapillo that much of an upgrade over DJ Glaze to take here? I don't know about that. And they could use They could use a lot of stuff on their defense, man. Safety too. I'm going to take Andrew Makuba to replace Trevor Moehrig in that defensive back room. Patriots took Will Campbell and Jaden Higgins to help out their young quarterback. Hey, running back, their number 1 need, Caleb Johnson. Boom. Drake May, you got a running back. You got a left tackle. You got a wide receiver. Go figure it out, man. Jacksonville Jaguars took Mason Graham and Xavier Watts, 2 immediate starters on that defense that could not stop a nosebleed last year. I like Mason Taylor here to the Jaguars. They lose Evan Ingram. Tight end, massive need. Saints got a quarterback, got a receiver. Again, they need a lot. Who's the best player on the board? Oladejo? Sure. I mean, he's not. They only like to edge players who are like 270 pounds, though. I don't know if he's their type. But Azariah Thomas probably starts for them at corner right away. Bears of 72 took Walter Nolan and Kevin Winston for their defense. Got a nice young running back for their quarterback. What's up at tight end? They do have Cole Kmet. And they have that kid from Tennessee that is drafted a right tackle. I just give them the nastiest defensive front ever. Take CJ West as one of the best run stuffers in the draft as well. How about that defensive line? You got cooking in Chicago now. Jets pick 73. We took Armand Membu and Kyle Williams. All right. So I'm looking a lot of places here for the Jets. I could look tight end. I could look, let's check out. Probably not wide receiver or tackle since we already took those 2 positions. But definitely defensive interior I'll check off if the simulator will cooperate with me. Safety for sure. Edge, so defensive line in general. Safety. Tight end is kind of where I'm mainly thinking here for the Jets. Let's see what that spits out. So with that defensive interior, I think I am very comfortable waiting until the 4th round. I know it's a big need. It's just such a deep spot in the draft, probably the deepest spot in the draft. So I'm really looking at either edge, a tight end. I just think the tight end room is like maybe the worst in the NFL. So I'm probably going to go Jake Ferguson here, who I wish he was a little stronger at the catch point. I wish he was more physical, but he does have some nice wide receiver traits at the position and enough size to where he doesn't have to play like full-time receiver, can probably coach him up to play in line a bit. And again, it's probably the biggest need on the team and stylistically for how they're going to want to run their offense. If you don't get a tight end here with one of your top 75 picks, you're really going to put your offense in a tough spot, I think. So I will take Terrence Ferguson. So that's the Jets haul was Armand Membu, Kyle Williams, and Terrence Ferguson. Offense. All right, Aaron Glenn, coach up some mid and late round picks on that defense, baby. Help out Justin Fields. Carolina, we'll leave it there. I was going to go let's go 75 to make it even. What'd Carolina do? Jalen Walker, Jalen Royals. Give them Oladejo off the edge as well. And then San Fran, who took Kelvin Banks and Trey Amos. You need a defensive interior player with Javon Hargrave leaving. Shamar Turner enters. Top 75 picks of the 2025 NFL draft. Again, the Jets coming away with Armand Membu, offensive tackle, Kyle Williams, wide receiver, and Terrence Ferguson, tight end. And we'll talk all soon.